The first thing Detective Mira Reed noticed was the silence. Not the hushed quiet of reverence, but the thick, oppressive silence that settles after something terrible has happened. Standing in the doorway of the abandoned Blackwood Hotel's grand ballroom, she felt it press against her eardrums like a physical force. "No sign of forced entry," Officer Dawson said behind her, his voice unnaturally loud. "Security system was disabled from inside." Mira nodded, her eyes fixed on the lone figure seated at the center of the massive room. Eleanor Blackwood, 78, heiress to the Blackwood fortune, sat perfectly upright in an ornate chair, eyes open, a small blue envelope clutched in her rigid fingers. No blood, no visible trauma, just a woman who appeared to be staring into eternity. Mira knelt beside the body. Eleanor's expression was serene, her silver hair immaculately styled. She looked as if she'd dressed for an important meeting rather than her own death. "Who found her?" "The caretaker, this morning. Hotel's been closed for renovation for years, but Miss Blackwood still came by weekly to check on progress." Mira gently removed the envelope from Eleanor's grasp. Inside was a single card with 5 words written in elegant script. "The debt has been paid. Get me everything on the Blackwood family," Mira said. "Something tells me this isn't just about money." 3 days later, Mira stood in the rain outside the freshly filled grave of Eleanor Blackwood. The funeral had been small surprising for someone of her status. Only distant relatives and business associates had attended, speaking of her in vague, respectful terms that revealed nothing of substance. "Detective Reed?" Mira turned to see a young woman holding a black umbrella, her resemblance to Eleanor striking despite the age difference. "Cassandra Wells," the woman said. "Eleanor was my great-aunt." "I'm sorry for your loss," Mira replied automatically, studying Cassandra's face. "You weren't at the funeral." "I was asked not to attend." Cassandra's voice was bitter. "The family prefers I keep my distance. But I thought you should have this." She handed Mira a worn leather journal. "It belonged to my grandmother, Eleanor's sister. I found it after hearing about Eleanor's death. Why give this to me? Because Eleanor knew she was going to die. She'd been expecting it for 50 years. The journal belonged to Margaret Blackwood, dated 1974. Mira read it late into the night, the pieces falling together with horrifying clarity. The Blackwood siblings, Eleanor, Margaret, and Thomas, had been returning from a party on a rainy night when Thomas, drunk and driving, struck and killed a child. 10-year-old Sophia Chen, daughter of the hotel's head chef. Eleanor, already managing the family business at 24, made the problem disappear. The Chen family was paid off, their immigration status leveraged against them. They vanished overnight. Margaret's final entry was dated exactly 1 month after the accident. "Eleanor made a pact with Mr. Chen tonight. She thinks it's over. But I saw his eyes. This isn't over. He said he would collect in time. 1 Blackwood life for his daughters." Eleanor laughs it off, says he's just a cook with empty threats. But Thomas is terrified. I think Eleanor should be too. The toxicology report came back the next day. Eleanor had died from a rare poison derived from pufferfish, tetrodotoxin, virtually undetectable unless specifically tested for, impossible to self-administer without immediate paralysis. Mira tracked down Thomas Blackwood, now 80, and living in a luxury senior facility. His eyes darted nervously when she mentioned Eleanor. "She called me that night," he whispered, "said it was finally happening, that Jin Chen had found her." "Jin Chen, the chef?" Thomas nodded. "Eleanor thought she was so clever. She paid them off, got them new identities. But she never understood what she'd done. She'd taken his only child, his legacy." He looked up at Mira. "Jin Chen died 20 years ago. Cancer. But his son would be about your age now." The hotel kitchen was dusty from disuse. Mira ran her flashlight along the walls, stopping at a faded photograph still pinned to a corkboard. A young Asian man in chef whites stood proudly beside an older man, Jin Chen and his son, according to the caption. The son looked familiar. "Looking for something, detective." Mira spun around. The caretaker stood in the doorway, his features matching the younger man in the photograph. "David Chen," she said, the pieces clicking into place. "You changed your name." "My father did, yes. But family remembers." His voice was calm, detached. 50 years is a long time to wait for justice, detective. But the Blackwoods were patient, so we learned to be patient too. "You poisoned her." "I prepared her final meal. There's a difference." He stepped forward. "Did you know Eleanor came here every week for 50 years? Not to check renovations, to remember. She spent 5 decades looking over her shoulder, wondering when we would collect." "Thomas is still alive," Mira said. "Was he next?" David smiled sadly. "No, the debt is paid. 1 Blackwood life for my sisters. Eleanor chose to bear that burden alone. She came here knowing what would happen. She made her choice 50 years ago, and she made it again 3 nights ago. Jin Chen had spent years planning his revenge, his grief transforming into a solemn vow that would transcend even his own death. The clocks of justice had been ticking across decades, marking different times but leading to this inevitable moment. I have enough to arrest you, perhaps, but you have no proof I administered poison. And you have something else now, the truth, which is all my father ever wanted. He turned to leave. Sometimes justice finds its own path, detective. Even if it takes 50 years of silence to get there. Mira watched him walk away, the weight of his words settling in the quiet of the abandoned kitchen. She had the evidence in Margaret's journal, the motive, even a confession of sorts. But she also had the truth about a little girl whose death had been erased, a family forced into shadows, and a half-century of waiting. In the distance, the grand exterior of the Blackwood Hotel loomed against the night sky, its weathered facade holding decades of secrets. A single light still burning in one window. Somewhere within those walls, it seemed as though the spirits of both Sophia Chen and Eleanor Blackwood might be passing each other in the corridors, one entering eternity as the other finally found peace. The silence in the empty hotel seemed different now, not the silence of something terrible that had happened, but the silence that comes when something long awaited is finally complete. She pulled out her phone, then paused, her finger hovering over the keypad. After a long moment, she slipped it back into her pocket and walked away, leaving the kitchen as empty and silent as it had been for years. The detective's silhouette paused in the hotel doorway, looking back one last time before leaving, the building's grand architecture filled with shadows and light. Some debts, once paid, demand nothing more than silence. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that linger long after the last word.